Welcome to Optimal Game State, back for another monthly review. The goal of these videos is to look over recent releases that we can get now rather than worrying about what's due up for pre-order. It's also a good way to look across the various game lines to understand how the release schedule for your favorite game compares with others. As it's something that it's easy to think that you get neglected, while in reality most of the lines seem to get a similar kind of treatment. All right, we're going to start with Blood Bowl, where we have a new gnome team, which has been very, very popular. I did a short video talking about the background of these little guys from the RPG. They look like there'll be a lot of fun in Blood Bowl. Now, note that this is a stunty team, which means it's typically designed to be fun, but not necessarily competitive. If you're looking to start in the Blood Bowl for the first time, it might be better to look at another team. If you're an experienced coach, though, or if you just love the model so much that you're okay with losing, teams like this can be very, very rewarding. Think of it as training with the weights on. Along with the main team box, we also got a new Treeman kit and a special player who has a fancy ability that lets him fish the ball from a few squares away, which is quite cool. As is usual with new team releases, we get a new Spike magazine, we get cards, we get dice, and a quite nice looking board. Now, boards are a bit of a luxury, as you should already have the standard board from the main Blood Bowl box. When looking at a board, consider how clear the squares are to be able to make them out. There was an old corn board, which was just full of skulls, which looked amazing, but unfortunately it was kind of tricky to read. It was, you'd often kind of misplace your player because the squares weren't clear. Now, in this case, I do think it is quite nice. The gnomes seem to have this nice, beautifully manicured lawn with very clear squares. Similarly, cards typically aren't recommended, but can be a nice reminder if you're new to the team or if you're bringing someone into it. I did personally pick up the Spike Journal myself, despite not getting the team yet, and it is packed with the most corny gnome jokes you'll ever find, so it is really recommended. It also has rules for a second star player, which hopefully we'll see a model for soon. Over to Warcry, we did get the Pyre and Flood release, which has the Riverblades versus the Pyre guys. As is the current new approach, we get a funky piece of scenery and a bunch of new mission cards. Both the warbands look decent, and it comes with a typical book campaign that works great for the two warbands to play against. You don't get any tokens, board, and so on, so you're going to need a little bit more if you wanted to start with this box, but it is something you can do. I have included the new box for the Dark Oath here, as I was hoping we'd see some Warcry rules by now, but we haven't. I guess that's not too much of a surprise, as we already have the Dark Oath Savagers, which are a great warband, so I guess we didn't really need it, but I had this box sitting in my cart, hoping that I'd see some new Warcry rules for it, and I snap it up. I haven't, so I guess I've been kind of spared there. We did get a bunch of releases which were previously in combined boxes. So Hunter and Hunted warbands and a bunch of the old signature scenery. I believe the scenery has been bundled into 2 packs. So if you missed boxes and want to get some of that scenery, you have that option. It is nice to see the warbands getting released individually. Obviously, it's something we expected. Personally, I wasn't a fan of the Ogres, so I ended up pushing it off and then picking up the Wildercorp Hunters once they came out with this release. That does mean I do miss out on the campaign book, but I still get the cards, which is really all I'm interested in. Killteam similarly got its Nightmare release, which we've been promised for a while now. This is the Night Lords, Chaos Space Marines versus the Mandrakes of the Drukhari. As with Warcry, this comes with a nice signature terrain piece that goes with the Beta Decima terrain, or indeed any of the 40k terrain. As we've come to expect, the terrain designers have kept to spec, and this kit connects with the rest of the Mechanicus kits in many subtle ways. It does actually look like it's a really nice piece of terrain for 40k Killteam or even Necromunda. As we've seen with this new release scheme, this box does include the larger cards, which have all the info for all the operatives, which is quite handy. I've also included the image for some of the new Kroot models, which I think would be nice options to expand out your Kroot kill team. Unfortunately, Kroot hounds are limited to 2 per team, but if you were missing some options, being able to pick up some of the character models is a nice, if expensive, option. And those remain releases. We then have White Dwarf 499. This gave us a bunch of Warcry rules for Underworlds models, which I am always grateful for. It definitely encourages me to buy more Underworlds, but alas, they didn't include cards in the magazine, which makes me less likely to pick up the White Dwarf. There is a Warcry battle plan generator, which at first I thought were just the cards from the Scales to Talaxis box. But looking over it now, I think these are all new mission cards. Again, these aren't an actual set of cards, which would have made it an instant buy for me, but there are a bunch of new options within there that you could use to shake up your games if you wanted. So basically, they've got small pictures of cards essentially and a dice scheme that you can use to randomize them. There is a nice section on the background lore for Necrons, focusing on the cryptics. That's something you're interested in. That's pretty cool. I certainly am. I do love Necrons. It did look like there was some Killteam missions in there, but they're actually boarding actions for 40k. So that's the Space Hulk Killteam terrain, but played across 2 boards and using 40k rules. It was a very popular format when it came out, so it's good to see it's in there. Even if more Killteam might have been my preference. And that's about all the content I was interested in this release. Next month is 500, so it'll be fun to see what to do with that. Now, before we finish up, after my last monthly review, it was suggested that I at least mention some of the recent rumors that have been floating around. I try avoid the regular Warhammer drama, but a few of the rumors have people worried. 2 in particular I have on screen here. One is the big one from 4chan, which is the one that blew in the background. It makes a lot of claims, but it looks to be complete fabrication. There's a few known rumors, a couple of common sense guesses, and then a bunch of rubbish to rile people up as far as I can tell. And in this specifically, they do talk about Legion Imperialis, among other things, but the Legion Imperialis one is relevant because this suggests that sales were terrible and that GW are going to start canning it. In one of their Warhammer community articles, GW did at the very bottom talk about how they've got a plan lined up for releases for I think it's at least the next full year. So yeah, it did look like it was a direct response to this blue post, and they just wanted to kind of reassure people. So all of that rubbish. I think the whole thing is rubbish, and you should ignore it as far as I'm concerned. I certainly am. The other one we have in front of us here is the one in white. It was basically a report that Warcry is getting cancelled. Now, some sleuthing by the Warcry Discard found this is the actual quote, what that rumor video was spiraling out of, and in this, it only says that GW wanted to push the new Spearhead format for Age of Sigmar, which is coming up. Any suggestion that Warcry was going away was purely speculation, and quite honest, that is the exact same as killing Killteam because 40k now has Combat Patrol. It's a silly idea. I think people just like to stir up shit. Anyway, so those are all things. Forget about them. Move on with your lives. Don't worry about it. Everything that I've seen with these and anyone else I've talked to about it, all of these ones look like rubbish. So if you're worried about your favorite game getting cancelled, or if you're thinking you're not going to get into something because you think it's getting canned, don't think that. This is just internet rumors by anonymous posters. All right, so this month was dominated by Killteam, Warcry, and Blood Bowl. I am tempted to call those the big 3, but working out which of the big games for GW is quite tricky, as they don't really give us sales stats. I gather that Blood Bowl is low-key one of their most successful games, though, with a really dedicated following. I do think if you're focused on any one of these games on this display, that you probably have lots to keep you going, which I think is great. Personally, I try to balance way too many of them, and at the moment, my backlog has gotten out of hand, and it is a bit of a struggle. I might actually do a video about that. I am currently working through an undead Blood Bowl team, but I have a lot of Warcry and a lot of Titanicus that I need to catch up on. So that's where I am. Oh yeah, unless you're playing Warhammer Quest. Maybe Warhammer Quest needs a few more releases. They have been getting some White Dwarfs, but it would be nice to see some more bottles and some more boxes. I just recently got my Cursed City, or my Ulfenkarn RPG source book. So I had the PDF copy before, and now I've got the physical one. So I'm very, very happy with that. More releases, more models, that will be nice. Anyway, I'm beginning to ramble. This has been a good month. We're about to move into May, and we already have some fun things lined up. So that's something to look forward to. But yeah, remember, we have good stuff now. Don't focus too much on the FOMO. You've got a lot of a backlog to catch up on, and you've got a lot of nice releases that you can just walk into a store and pick up. So enjoy, and thank you very much for listening. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Each week I put up a new video talking about one of Games Workshop's specialist games.
The goal is always to try and make the best possible two-player experience. If this is something you'd find interesting, please subscribe to the channel and comment to let me know what you'd like to see in future.